If you reject the conventional and embrace what's offbeat, guess what? It's time for Pillow Pete. 3 cheers! It's time for Pillow Pete. Fuck me! It's time for Pillow Pete.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Prattling with Pillow Pete. Today we have Power Rob on the show. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, my name is Power Rob. I'm a vocalist, songwriter, vocal coach, and from time to time, I'm an actor and a voice actor from the Baltimore area in the United States.
All right, so, well, that's Power Rob, everyone. I'll go ahead and just dive right into the questions then. So, how did you get started in music? Have you been creating things since you were young, or did you discover your talent later on in life?
That's a great question. I got into music. I mean, I've always been a giant fan of it since I was a kid. In terms of being a fan of it, I can think as far back to when I was, I think, around 4 or 5. I remember I had I saw there was a VHS tape of classic Queen and greatest hits that I saw a lot, and then it moved on to having a few Aerosmith cassette tapes. I then grew into Bad Religion. I listened to them exclusively for a couple years, and then I got more into traditional heavy metal, like Kiss, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, power metal, that kind of stuff. But in terms of becoming a performer or an artist of any kind, that was probably when I was around 15. I had to take an elective, and I didn't really like gym, and so I took chorus, and I had some fun doing it. And a buddy of mine wanted to build a band with me. We built a little school band then, and I would say it showed me how much I had to get better. We released some music that really wasn't that wonderful, and it just motivated me to. I wanted to do better than that. We got a lot of ridicule, means teenagers, but point being, it motivated me to seek out training, and that's when I started kind of getting serious. I had the pleasure of working with a vocal coach named Larry Friedman. He was on the national tours of Jesus Christ Superstar. He was the understudy of Ted Neely, and he taught me a lot of how rock high notes. There's kind of a right and a wrong for his method, and I studied books, DVDs, and all that stuff. I talked to the singers, and I just got really hungry. I started taking his stuff. I started adding to it, and around that time, I built my first band, which was Aries. And I would say a couple years into that, I went to my second vocal coach, which was my classical one, Joy Green. So she kind of filled in a lot of other holes that needed to be filled in, mainly breathing and stuff. And but it was around those years where I started kind of getting the hang of writing. Mainly, I would write with someone else who would make the music, and then I would just add melodies over top of it. And then after Aries had ended in 2015, I decided to try to write music as well. And so I started studying how Michael Jackson wrote music, because as someone who primarily focuses on voice first, I was wondering how the heck he did that if he couldn't play instruments and couldn't read or write music. And I started finding out that he basically just sung everything to a click track. And so I tried it, and I got one of the guitar players in Aries to check out some stuff that I wrote. And then with a couple months passed, Throat Killer's first few songs are out, and people started liking it a lot. And that just motivated me to write more. And with Aries, we had a good run. We got to play with Sebastian Bach, Symphony X. We had 2 fun gigs with the Proto-Men, Doral Pesh, a bunch of different names too. And it was a good run. You basically, we learned a lot, and I learned a lot what to do, what not to do, which then led to Throat Killer. And around that time, probably 2012, that's when I got introduced to rock operas, and that's the whole other 7 years of just crazy stories and wild stuff that happened during those times. But yeah, I would say that's kind of a summary of where I've been at. Now I work with Aztec Records with Power Rob, and of course I work with Dark Rob in Megatronics, and he's also the drummer for Thrill Killer, so it makes things convenient. But yeah, I guess it's a pretty good summary.
Yeah, that was, man, like you really did, like you just summed up everything. Like I especially like you mentioned how like you were taking inspiration from Michael Jackson, and like I
Yeah.
can really hear that in your song Runaway. Like I
Thank
even
you.
played, yeah, like I listen to that like all the time when I'm driving, and like I had my brother and one of my cousins in the car, and they even mentioned that they're like, man, this sounds like Michael Jackson.
Great. That was one of the ideas, so I'm glad to hear that.
Oh yeah.
The
Um,
MJ was fascinating. I was a session singer for a couple years, and so my job was just to recreate vocals for a remix company. And so one day you'd go in there, you'd have to recreate like AC/DC. Then another day you have to go in there and it'd be like Michael Jackson or something. And so when I did the Michael Jackson sessions, I did a Love Never Felt So Good. And when I recreated that, all its parts and stuff, it opened my eyes to like how his voice did what it did. Because it's one thing to listen to like an artist class, another thing to be like paid to really get in there and figure out how the layers worked, how his tones worked, and I found I had fun with it, and that kind of initially kicked it off. And it was like, oh yeah, this is there's actually like I sent a friend of mine a map. It was actually one of the guys from Aztec where I showed like a diagram of the face, and I was like, this is the spots in his face that kind of vibrate during what parts and stuff. And I had a chance to study just some interviews with this guy Seth Riggs. He was the coach of Michael Jackson for a couple years, and I had the pleasure of I was friends with someone who took lessons from that guy. And so that was like a gold mine, just figuring out, what were the lessons. I actually found a recording on YouTube of a phone vocal lesson he had with Seth. So yeah, it was definitely a fun couple years just figuring out, what led to like Smooth Criminal. Not so much like the notes themselves, but what was the thought process? Like what led him to create that creative process as opposed to like taking a song of his verbatim? Runaway was more like, it's now becoming a way I just like to write and sing. But one of my goals if I started, doing more MJ stuff is to just have elements of MJ, but you can't pick a song of his that it sounds like. And that's just kind of my personal opinion about how influence is a little more organic. When you can't put a finger on what song it sounds like, where it's just like, it just sounds like him. To me, that's I think that's one of the more flattering things to hear, because that's the goal. It's like, this doesn't sound like any MJ song, but there's MJ in it, and at least that was the theory. So
yeah,
glad to hear that.
yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, because like, I mean, if you make a song, it's like you don't want somebody to be like, oh, this just sounds like this other song that somebody did. Like, what would even be the point in listening to it if you could just listen to the other song?
yeah, right. I was in a couple bands over the years where like they would say things like, we want to be the next blank. And it's like, for instance, one was like, we want to be the next Metallica. And it's like, well, if that's the case, then I already have Metallica albums. They probably did it better because they're Metallica. They're better at being Metallica than we are. So I'll just listen to Metallica and they'll get it better than we will. So yeah, I agree.
All right. Like I've seen like you've been in a lot of different bands. Like, is this an intentional decision on your end, or have things just not always worked out with some of the people that you've collaborated with?
Well, yeah, it depends on the project, really. I have a tendency to, when I learn stuff, I like to really learn hands-on. And so a lot of the older bands I had been in, we're talking like really ancient history here, like 2009 and stuff, I learned a lot of pretty much just like what to avoid to do if I made my own. And in Aries, it's interesting that with those guys, because that was before. I think at this point, Thrill Killer is almost as old as Aries was before it ended. But with Aries, we sometimes had a habit of kind of just going with the easiest choice at the time. Like, we were always excited to just move forward. And I think sometimes we didn't have the best vetting process. I stay in touch with a lot of the people from it. I actually had a talk with Sean. He was a guitar player for the latter half of Aries, and we are working on a pretty fun deal going on about our back catalog. But point being, the first half of my career was mainly me I wanted to get the hang of it. So that meant just like working with different bands as much as possible and moving forward. When Thrill Killer arrived, that's when I started to try and run a band in terms of the writing of the lyrics, the music, literally everything. And so there was we had a couple core members that were around for a long time. I mean, the one that's definitely been around the longest has been Sebastian. He's actually be at practice tonight. He's been there since almost day one. And I think if I learned anything over the past few years, there are a few people that I've worked with for ages. Like I've developed some really good relationships with a handful of people, mainly, as mentioned, Sebastian's one of them. Robbie, aka Dark Rob, him and I, we had worked on All-Star Jams. There's this event called the 98 Rock All-Star Jam we did together. We did a bunch of those probably as long ago as, I want to say 2013 together. And we had just been in a lot of those together, and eventually we just realized, hey, let's gig. But nowadays, the multiple projects I'm currently in, that's intentional. I think that synthwave is at a crossroads right now where I think that it has to evolve or it's going to kind of evaporate. And I think we're currently in the middle of a phase 2 of synthwave where like there's a lot of really more experimental projects that are coming out. And I mean, like for instance, one of my favorite examples is probably Zarina. Her whole music film universe, her style and everything. She's a great example of a good phase 2 musician. And so with what I wanted to do, initially it was going to be Thrill Killer and Megatronics, and have Thrill Killer do kind of more like rock and evolve us more into kind of a pop sound, where Megatronics was like metal synthwave. Yeah. And then I got hit up for Aztec, and they wanted to do a solo thing, and so it dawned upon me. I thought, okay, well, I like writing in all three. I like writing in Thrill Killer, and I like writing in Megatronics, and it's fun to do one-offs with stuff like Penetrator and whatnot. But I've noticed that there are a lot of subgenres of synthwave that are kind of beginning to evolve, and I like a lot of them. But as I'm writing in them, sometimes those subgenres are so specialized that stuff I write for Power Rob may not necessarily fit for Thrill Killer. And with Megatronics, Dark Rob writes all that music, and so my job is just the vocal melodies on those. But it's great. So like, if a lot of times I like writing a lot of rock stuff, or a lot of a little more, I guess, intense, kind of like funkier stuff, which may not necessarily work for Power Rob, and that goes to Thrill Killer. And also, it's great to have a live full band. Thrill Killer, we are at our core, we're a live band. Megatronics is a really fun live act, and part of why it's convenient with Megatronics is there's only 2 of us. But the thing with that makes Thrill Killer unique is it is a full experience. For Power Rob, which has been a big focus of mine lately, I still haven't figured out how to do Power Rob live. It's do I have a backtrack, or do I get musicians? I don't know. That's my job over the next few months. But yeah, lately it's been with the pandemic and everything. I've been trying to focus on just getting as much content out there and being as diverse as possible while we wait for shows to come back. So lately, it's been very intentional to just have as much out there in as many styles as possible. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I actually really like that, just because like I've been looking really into all of the stuff you've been a part of, and I pretty much like all of it, honestly. Like I would say like my favorite would be Thrill Killer and like just your own stuff, like as Power Rob. But like just everything you have, it's like you certainly bring like a unique sound to like everything you do. And like I really like that direction. Yeah, no problem, man. Like, and like what you were saying more with synthwave, and because like I don't know if I'm just not looking in the right places, but like I'm kind of 50-50 on it. It's like there's some like where I really like it, and then others where I'm just like, I don't know. It just sounds like they are trying to like just stick to like one particular sound, as if like they're trying to go off of like a book instead of doing things like organically. I guess, if that makes any sense.
It is. There's a lot of stuff I've noticed in synthwave, even though I enjoy the genre a lot. A lot of the music is presets I've picked up, where like you literally hit one key and like a whole chunk of a song is essentially being played. I tried that when I was trying to build a couple Power Up songs, and I couldn't do it. Like it felt like just personally, I like to make sure every note is like what it needs to be. But Power Up was a heck of a challenge because when I got hit up by Aztec, they asked me if I had anything in my vault, and I said yeah, and so I had a couple collaborations in there, and I sent them over, and their quality control is intense. They actually said no to a chunk of songs, and so I decided, okay, then I'm going to write a song, everything, just like ground up. This has got to make it. I'm going to make the catchiest pop song I possibly can, and that turned into Runaway. And so I remember like I went to Tony Corelli, which is the engineer for Thrill Killer and Megatronics, and now Most Power Up, and that was our goal for like a week or two, was just me build the MIDI files, have the catchiest chords and stuff, and if Runaway was not going to work, it would have been like, man, I don't know what'll work then. So I'm very happy that worked out, but that has been part of my job over the past few weeks, has been not just building Power Up, but building things that not just I'm happy with, but also Aztec's happy with, and it's been a very exciting challenge to figure out what in my style of writing they like and how to just push that really far, because I know that one of the benefits of working with Aztec is they put out some excellent artists, and when you're working on your own stuff all the time, it's sometimes it is good to have an opinion of from someone that has like put out stuff that's charted well, and so that has been a fun exercise. Or Thrill Killer, those guys, their reactions are always, oh, Rob's got an idea, let's just go with it. And I remember there was initially a little bit of hesitation when I wrote King of '84, because the title initially, they remember Sebastian was not sold on it. Like he was like, what's it called? And I told him the title, and I said, here, play this riff, and I kind of sung the riff for the hook, and then I sung the vocals over top, and he lit up, and I was like, see, like it just has to be that. And
yeah.
So like after that, and then when I wrote San Francisco Moto, they're like, we're going funk, really? And so once they heard it in the studio, I think it was after that they were just like, whatever weird ideas Rob has, we're cool with it. So I got lucky that I got a team like that. They're good guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they enjoyed what you did, because I mean, the King of 1984, that's like probably my favorite Thrill Killer song. So
oh, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah,
that's got its whole history to it too. I wrote that I wrote a light when I'm driving on the down low. Like I'll take a voice memo thing, and I'll just sing the parts in my head, and I'll save it, and then I'll play it over the speakers, and then sing the vocal part over top the riff I just wrote on my voice. And King of '84 was that was completely how the main parts are built, and then I had to figure out the main keyboard and piano, which is a little bit I can play. But I'm glad you like that one. It's one of my babies.
Yeah, and I know like you were talking about like Megatronics and stuff. I actually bought the cassette.
Oh, snap! Nice, thank you.
Yeah, like as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh man, I have to get that, because didn't you guys only make like, what was it, like 21 or 27 of those or something?
Yeah, I think that the total was either, I think it was I think it might have been 20 in the US and then 20 or 50 in Europe. I got to double check with Dark Rob about that one, but I believe those are the numbers.
Yeah.
I guess you can count probably 18 or 17, because one of them I have one of them. Robbie's got one of them, and then Tony's got one of them. So technically it was like 17, because it was like, I never had that. Well, Thrill Killer was on one cassette before. It was a collaboration. It was like a collaboration cassette of one event we played, but we didn't have like a cassette proper like this one did.
Yeah.
So like it was like, without saying, it was like we have to have our own for posterity. I know Dark Rob actually bought a big boombox just to have for Power Wave. So that's on my to-do list at some point, is just to have one, because I don't know what I'm playing on, but yeah, I got one too.
Yeah, like I don't have anything to play it on. I just bought it just for fun.
Yeah, it's great to have it.
Yeah, like I was honestly surprised, because I mean, like I don't make music or anything, but like I know a lot of people, it sounds like it's even hard just to even get a CD. So I was surprised like you guys went with cassette tapes. Like, was that difficult to do?
Good question. I know we always wanted them. It was easy only because we were able to get Power Wave printed because we were approached by TW1 Records to release our upcoming EP under them. And Robbie is he's a heck of a businessman, and he had a great idea. he asked if part of the deal signing with them was, could we also get production for Powerwave, get some cassettes out. So that was all thanks to TW1. That's why they have the logo on the side. But I find it also, one thing I kind of find is funny is I'm happy with everything about Powerwave, the art and all that. But the artwork you see on the cover of the cassette tape, that was done after the release. And like Bo Bradshaw did such a great job that it was kind of this posthumous thing where it was like, man, this really should have been the artwork. So I'm glad it made that cassette tape because Bo is just an immensely talented artist. But yeah, we got lucky that TW1 are just really really resourceful and really cool.
I know, like you mentioned, like we were talking about some of the songs, and like I know you said like King of '84 was like basically like one of your babies. So do you have like a list of like maybe like one or two of your favorite songs from like every project you've done?
Yeah, that's a good question. You have to forgive me here. Like the allergies in Maryland are dreadful, so you might see me like every once in a while squinting. It's not. I've had adequate sleep today. I promise. It's just like over here the signs are all apocalyptic. So every once in a while I might have a brain fart. But the stuff about the writing, or the stuff I've been a part of. I could probably give a quick list of probably. I have 2 songs for each. Aries, number 1 is probably The Road. That is likely what all of us agree on that project. However, second place, that's a tough one. When the World Needs a Hero possibly would be number 2. Whatever number 2 is. Okay, never mind. It's The Road and Midnight Master. Those 2, period. Very happy with those 2 songs. But there are other ones I'm happy with. Thrill Killer, Passion Killer, it's a toss-up between 3 probably. It's probably Passion Killer, King of '84, and Moto. It's hard to pick which best of the 2 of those. I always felt that Passion Killer was like the most well-oiled machine of a song that I've written, where like it just has everything it needs to, and there's not really any filler in it. Because a lot of times when you're writing a song from start to finish, sometimes certain parts are not exactly the way you want them from inception to completion. There are little tiny things in King of '84 and Passion Killer that I would probably want to just change a little bit. But Moto, no. That was the first time working with Tony Corelli, and every idea that I had, he just got it. That's tough. Maybe Moto by a slight nudge just because of how it translated. And Megatronics is very easy. These are all not counting new songs is a good way to put it. There's a lot of new stuff coming out that you really like with a song. You have to give it time to like really like when you're obsessing over a song day after day after day. Your ears are kind of biased. So the new stuff could make that list. I think it likely would, but it needs time. But for Megatronics, the reason I said this, Megatronics has a banger coming out. So it's like I got to put an asterisk here. But I Fight Time. That's very easy. I Fight Time, I think, is the best Megatronics song. However, we have other ones that are good competitors, but I Fight Time has always been my favorite. It was the easiest to write. That song was one of the few times I was given a metal song that I just thought to myself, I would just like to just listen to this instrumental. Like I just enjoyed listening to the instrumental. The only song that I felt had the potential to come close off of Powerwave was probably Maverick Hunter. That one was also an easy one to write over. And then for Power Rob, we only have a couple songs out, and I guess I'll be biased, because I'm going to pick the one that I wrote, but probably Runaway. I think Strong's a great tune, but when you got when you write part of it, you're a little more vested. But I think Runaway ended up being one of the top probably hooks I've written so far. I'm pretty happy with that. If you count Penetrator, that doesn't count. Penetrator's got one song, so it just has the one song in it. But I think that's a good list.
Like, have you worked on any projects that have gotten like really far into production but just never saw like an official release anywhere? And if so, like, could you talk about maybe one or two if there are any?
Yeah, there's a chunk of songs actually that have not seen the light of day. Usually for various reasons. For instance, there was a chunk of Aries material that we were in the middle of working on for an album we were going to release called Noir, but we just never got around to doing it because the band was defunct eventually. There are some Thrill Killer songs that never got released, primarily because I felt at the time when those songs were recorded, I felt that they were turning into a little too much rock when they were being translated by the band. So I wanted to revisit them and kind of give more of a facelift and add some more elements to it, maybe some more synth stuff. Digital Desperado was actually like that. Digital Desperado, the vocals were recorded, I think, almost 2 years ago. And they were, actually, the vocals are quite old. It's one of the few times where the vocals were finished and everything else wasn't. We rebuilt that song from the ground up. I wanted it to be larger. I wanted more synths. I wanted a big ominous at beginning and ending. So that was when I got finished. But we actually have a couple songs that are kind of in the vault. And some of them are among my favorite songs. But once I can get around to it, they're definitely in the plans for making the next Thrill Killer EP. Okay, there was one other song. It's kind of more of a joke song. There was a project I got hit up for years ago. I was working with one guy in the music community. He wanted to build a side project with me, and he wanted like nerd-based music and stuff. And there was a full song I recorded with him. It was about Frieza, and like I recorded all the vocals to it, and it was pretty fun. That never got finished just because he never got around to finishing it. And around the time Harambe was funny, I was hanging out with friends in my car one day, and we heard this song. It was a kind of a bro rock song. And as a joke, I started writing new lyrics over top of the Chugga Chugga stuff. And I started building this whole like epic bro rock song about Harambe. And it ended up turning into this really hooky song. And I made it like much more elaborate when I went home. And I snuck the Bill Nye the Science Guy like guitar lick and like some of the guitar lines and stuff. And like it was pretty fun. And then I sent it to the Frieza guy, and he never finished it, and so by now it's not funny, and so that's the main reason Harambe can't see the light of day, because it's like it's dead now. But that broke my heart because I think it could have been hot.
That's breaking my heart hearing about it, because I know exactly what you mean. It's like if you went and uploaded that today, it's like even if people like the song, they're going to be like, well, why is this guy singing about Harambe right now?
Yeah, I wrote it back when it was relevant, and so I kept telling him, dude, we're sitting on the fire right now. If we can finish Harambe, man, and it'd be cool. And it was kind of like a little nod at the Baltimore music scene a little bit, because there's a lot of bro rock, like kind of like butt rock stuff. There's kind of a lot of it to the point where it's kind of endearing, and so I just wanted to write one where I took all the elements I've seen in the style and just make like a legitimate like butt rock song, but like about Harambe. Perhaps it was not a good idea anyways. I probably would have probably made a few people irritated, but Harambe breaks my heart. It's this day. There's a vocal demo of me singing all the parts to it, floating around somewhere, and it got everything in there. It has all the catchphrases, all the meme stuff, and
oh my goodness,
never happened.
So like I know like you were saying that was like kind of like someone's like side project or whatever. Like do you think do you think you could ever rework it maybe just to like get the song itself out just with different lyrics, so it might not be like as like old sounding or whatever? Maybe,
but if you were to hear it, the big popular saying from Harambe that everyone kept shouting, that was the hook, and it fit like it fit like a glove. It was so on the money. It perfectly nailed the meme, and the music, like. It's a commentary on bro rock, so it's a lot of elements that I refer to as chugga chugga, and I usually try to avoid chugga chugga in my writing, except that was the one time where it was like we took the chugga chugga to 11 on deliberately, and then would sneak in like elements like dun, 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 like stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so like if I made it my own song, it would have to be some sort of parody. But yeah, that one, we joke about it sometimes in Thrill Killer, where like they've heard the demo and it was just like, man, like if we released it, part of me is glad I didn't do it, because I do teach kids, and if they heard the Harambe thing, like it probably would have been much. Like sometimes I know that Penetrator, it gets a little borderline, like it doesn't get too much, but Harambe does not. It's not subtle. It is deliberately in your face, and so there would be no hiding if I was on that one. Although Penetrator and we do have a cover coming out. It's not Harambe levels, but it's pretty. It's pretty meme-tastic. That's on the way.
I'm excited to hear whatever you have in store. So, beyond music, like, how did you settle on the name Power Rob?
A great question. So this all started like almost 8, 9 years ago.
Hmm.
Dark Rob or Robbie Whiplash. We were friends on social media. I believe the way we became friends was I was hosting a local LPFM radio station show, and I think he wanted to be on one of my episodes, and he added me that way. But then eventually we became friends, and because we were both named Rob, I joked about how we should give each other names, and so he went by. Initially, I think it was Shadow Rob initially because his vocals he did in his project were much more growly,
Hmm.
and I was doing a lot of power metal at the time, and so I think either he called me Power Rob or I brought up that I was Power Rob, and so that's really how that began. And then when we made Megatronics, we were like, well, we're both Rob, so let's just put that in there. And he eventually changed Shadow Rob to Dark Rob, and when Aztec hit me up, I felt it was a good idea to just stick with Power Rob since Power Rob had been named so much in different Megatronic stuff. Not only that, but there's also a famous blues singer named Robert Bradley, and
Hmm.
so that was it for me. So I
Yeah.
figured we'd go something else. So yeah, I ran it by Aztec and it worked, and I've been kind of consolidating everything under that name. So and also just I think it sticks a bit better, and just it's a fun name.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. um, so I was wondering, like, if you were given the opportunity to work with, like, do more collaborations with somebody, like, let's say, like, your favorite musician or band, like, who would you probably want to work with?
In synthwave, Carpenter Brute. I can hear certain things that I would have a lot of fun with. I think his sense of his choice of instruments is brilliant. He just has one of the most distinct sounds in synthwave, and the few times I've heard vocals, they're always good songs, but there's always part of me that's kind of like, man, I would have a lot of fun, like if I was in like kind of those shoes working on something. I've not had the pleasure of talking to the guy, but I think we are friends on Facebook. He would be the one in synthwave, without a doubt, with my top of the list. I just have a feeling based on his superb sense of style and unique sound that it would be a lot of fun. Um, in terms of other other genres, it's kind of a small collection, and this I think it's more just due to my respect for them as writers.
Hmm.
I think that Desmond Child is brilliant. He is one of those guys where you don't know his name, but you know the songs he has written on. He was discovered by Paul Stanley in the late '70s,
Hmm.
and him and Paul Stanley got together and wrote "I Was Made for Loving You," "Sure
Ah.
Knows Something." He then worked with Kiss throughout a lot of their career, and every song he did with them was excellent. And then he also worked with Bon Jovi, "Living on a Prayer." I believe "You Get a Love Bad Name." Like all these big songs, Desmond Child had his hands on. "Angel" by Aerosmith, that's Desmond Child. I believe he wrote all of it. Everything from I think "Livin' La Vida Loca." I think he also wrote that. Ricky Martin.
Yeah.
He wrote, in my opinion, on probably the best Scorpions album, "Humanity." Uh, Scorpions before that album, I always thought were hit or miss for me. The songs that hit, I thought were brilliant, but the songs that didn't hit, I didn't really kind of jive with them too much. But then Humanity came out, and I was like, why is this album consistently great? Like everything in it is just really good. And so I looked around the back, and I was like, oh, there it is. It's Desmond Child. Like this guy's a genius with hooks. So him, Paul Stanley. I think Paul Stanley's one of the most underrated rock hook artists. He really is fantastic when it comes to the art of the hook. He also, probably from 1982 to 1994, was one of the best live singers in rock history. Like he really was grossly underrated for his abilities as a singer. And for punk, Greg Graffin and Brett Gurewitz easily. I think that they're uh, absolutely brilliant as lyricists. They're one of the few writing teams that can string together highly complicated lyrics, but keep the melody fresh. Like usually when you're writing melodies and lyrics, the more complex the words are, uh, the more the melody suffers. Like you really
Hmm.
have to find a way. Like a lot of good lyric writing is almost like you're using nostalgia to your advantage. Like you're using phrases and terms and stuff that invoke a nostalgic reaction, and you're basically using those to color the melody, which is the goal. The goal is to get the melody in the listener's ear. So you're using phrases and terms that are familiar to kind of spice up the melody with. And that's usually how good lyrics are made. Those guys broke the mold because they'll write about stuff. Sometimes you need like a dictionary for it, and that's no understatement. Like they write highly complicated stuff. Like Generator, even to this day, you can peel back the layers of lyrics in Generator, and you'll find new meaning to it. So, yeah, that's kind of my list of guys I'd like to work with.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It sounds like you've been probably thinking about this for a while.
Oh yeah, I love talking about this kind of stuff. I have students that I work with that are working on releases and stuff, and I'll share that kind of stuff with them. And I got a couple that have some really exciting stuff that's on the way. I got a couple. I got one power metal singer that's an absolute monster. Like I want him at some point to just cut him loose in the rock opera world. He's an absolute beast. They all are, but yeah, it's fun. I could talk for days about how hooks work. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. So like we actually briefly I guess more you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier about like how like if you're driving around like you'll just pull up like your phone and just like kind of record stuff. Like, so could you describe your process maybe a little more about how you go about like creating music?
Yeah. So for the longest time, when I would write with someone else, my goal was you would kind of like quote unquote find where the melody belongs when you're listening to someone else's writing. There's a couple rules that I've just kind of over the years have developed organically. Like one of them is if you're writing just the melody, do your best to not follow the instruments. Like there are times when it's appropriate to do so, but it's almost like writing a bass line. Like good bass lines are usually free and they don't really match the guitar. And so a lot of the best ways to write music is you need to find that pocket of the pocket of sound where the melody thrives. And every once in a while they agree on a certain point with the other instruments, but there's the first. So the first is to find the melody using that method. Number two, you then try to just free syllable association with the melody. Not even free word, more so free syllable first. And you just think of what syllables hit right on certain parts of the melody, and then you reverse engineer it from there. You figure out, what words hit you that match the syllables really well. And then once you get kind of like what I refer to as skeleton lyrics, like words that fit and sound good in certain spots, you then take that, and then from there you build the story of the song itself. And that's usually how, in my opinion, good hooks work. Now, if you're writing the music first, there's several ways to do it. Runaway was interesting. I got contacted last year to write a PSA about wearing masks. And so I decided, they're like, they wanted like a really poppy, super cheesy kind of 80s riff. And so I just sat at my piano and I thought to myself, I just thought that riff basically hit me, the main key riff. And so I built that first, and then I just went back from there. And that job was write catchiest 80s possible. And then kind of as an aside, I sent a phone recording of it over to Aztec just to see. And they were like, oh, we like that. Can we see like it finished? And I was like, sure. And so I changed the words around. But for a lot of my other songs, like Thrill Killer, usually a melody just hits me out of the blue. And when I hear the melody in my head, I just save it. And so this thing's like got hundreds of melodies I've sung to it. And then usually I'll take one melody and from there build a song. But lately I've evolved that into now FL Studio, where with FL Studio, I'll map the whole song out, all the midis, the instruments. And if I'm doing it all, if it's a Thrill Killer song, I'll show the MIDI to the band. And then they'll see what parts are guitar, what parts are bass and all that. And then we'll build the song using the midis as a skeleton. And then we'll usually bring all the parts to someone like Tony Corelli, or like right now we're going to Dark Rob, who's also a really good engineer, to see if we can build it kind of all in-house. But that's usually how I build a lot of songs ground up, where either my band then learns what I've written and then records it, or I go to like someone like Tony, who's more of a producer first, and then we take the midis I built and then construct the song from those skeleton parts. But that's been it lately, and so far, it seems to work pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I like it, all of your music, so I would say it
Glad
works
to hear
pretty well
that.
too. Like basically, I've seen you post just certain things, like kind of like touching on like your own experiences. So like, are there any stories that like maybe I just can't think of like the right things to ask that like you would say would be noteworthy to share? Like maybe
There's
like
a
from
lot of
your
them.
rock opera days or anything?
I could probably give like a whole several hour episode about the rock
Oh,
opera stuff in general. It's rock opera worlds are. I never knew that stuff existed until I got contacted in 2012 by a friend of mine. He was like, "Yo, there's a power metal opera. You need to audition." And when I got asked to do that, uh, when I studied the power metal stuff, like I had to work hard for that. Like I would practice constantly. It was like almost like a tradition. Like I wanted to learn what the guys from the '80s did, and to do it, I had to really hustle. And so when I heard it was power metal, the guys in our area that could do power metal, like with the head voice and all that stuff, there's like a small handful of us. Like we all know each other. We're friends. And so when I
hmm.
heard there was a power metal thing, like auditioning, I was like, is there like an army of guys just like us that I missed? And so I was like ready to cut loose. I was like, it's gonna be competitive then. And but when I got there, I noticed that the first one I did, it was a lot of really talented theater people, but they didn't have a lot of rock guys. And so I didn't think I would get anything, but I found out like after callbacks that indeed I did get something, and it was the lead character. And so like that was a big shock. It was like, okay, well, I got to get the hang of acting now. And so after getting it, I had no idea how big that opportunity was until it was showtime after several months of practice. Um, I didn't know the Baltimore Rock Opera Society, they fill every show up. Like everything's oversold every time they have an event. And this was a big theater. So I remember like opening night, we had a block. The whole block was just a line of people just surrounded. And it was like a heck of a rush because, by the final week, that's when I got to see the set fully. And
Hmm.
this set was just this gigantic, sprawling, like magical forest made of like steel and effects and all of this stuff and LED lights and so it was just one of the biggest rushes of my career because my character, his voice was basically was like he had a magical voice that could like damage gods and like summon monsters and stuff, and it just was a heck of a rush. And so, I mean, after doing that, I had we had wild stuff happen in those events, and we even had a special midnight show on the second weekend after our 8 o'clock that had 2 days notice or like 3 days notice. That sold out. Like everything had sold out. We had 1,000 people tuning in online. I got best actor in a musical from DC Metro Theater Arts. We got best musical from DC Metro Theater Arts. I got nominated for best actor in a musical non-equity from Broadway World. And like it just kicked off all this acting stuff. And after that, I got yanked into like a ton of different operas from different companies. Everything from Jesus Christ Superstar to 1814, which was a rock opera based on the Battle of Baltimore. I played an evil British admiral based off Rob Halford for 2 years, and so like I got the red coat, all this stuff, and it was just. And then we got to play with the governor's band for the bicentennial of Baltimore, like 5,000 people and stuff, and yeah, absolutely madness. And then the pinnacle of it, in my opinion, was 2014, 2016 when I got contacted to reprise my character from the first opera, Valhalla, with the concert artists of Baltimore, which was the entire it was a full professional symphony and an opera choir. And PNC Bank had contacted the Rock Opera Society, and they wanted them to work with the symphony and stuff and do select songs from all their operas. And so next thing I know, I'm rehearsing in this giant cathedral kind of place, and I've got a giant symphony in front of me, and we got like a packed house and all this. And the craziest part about that event was I had to fill in for another guy for one of his songs, and so I had to do 2 tunes that evening. First song went fine, no problem. But then the song from Valhalla, which was the finale, I had about 10 seconds to work with the symphony to get it right the night before. And we didn't get it right. Like everything was off time. And next thing I know, I'm backstage. I don't know really my cue. And I just look out the corner, just this endless sea of people back there. And I've got this giant laser guitar sword called the Grundlehammer I'm holding backstage. And it's like shooting lights off. I'm like, great, I can't sneak up, I'm like, got this now. And so like I'm drinking like a Red Bull, just trying to get jazzed up, like just ready to just die. But I managed to figure out the timing, and I remember after I did the first run of it, the composer from the Rock Opera Society, he like ran up to me and hugged me, and he was like, "How did you find the pocket?" And I joked, I was like, "I don't know, I've had bad nights with my band before. I guess you just gotta take it easy." And so I found out we had to do that show 4 times in 2014, and after those 4 shows, I got asked to do it again in 2016. And when I did it that time, I was doing rehearsals with them, and all of a sudden, as I'm rehearsing with them, I hear my voice on the speakers, and I'm like, it dawns upon me, like it's this fear hits me, and I'm realizing they professionally recorded the vocals on that first performance, and I had no idea. And so I'm like telling him, I'm like, quiet, hold on, I'm like listening. All right, no mistakes. God, you guys are crazy. You guys are crazy. So that's online now. But yeah, those were called Convergence Maximus 1 and 2, and number 2 was even larger than number 1. That was the place that we managed to get for Thrill Killer 2, or sorry, Thrill Killer 3. The giant place that we did most of the battle sequences was that same venue. Lucky break, but yeah, the rock opera world. There's so much crazy stuff that happens in those. I never expected I'd have like a bra thrown at me in a theater before. Like that happened in Valhalla. Like it just was bonkers. Like we had a guy jump off the stage into the theater crowd and stuff. Like stage dive. I had we did like we did a prop guitar smashing in the final night. Like you name it. Like it was just absolute just insanity. And that's how I was able to become a coach. I had some of the actors that wanted to work with me, or one of the actors did. And that's, I think, why with Thrill Killer, it's so cinematic, because all the costumes in Thrill Killer were thanks to the Rock Opera Society. There was a big theater company off the street that had to get rid of a warehouse full of really high quality 80s kind of B sci-fi B stuff, and they just had to get rid of it. And so like I see a post, and Sebastian and I show up with a truck, and now you have all the sci-fi costumes for Thrill Killer.
My goodness.
So yeah, it was dumb break. Like we had dumb break after dumb break in those ones. I mean, we had the first 2. I just happened to know a guy that had a DeLorean in the first one. Then he became our guitar player in the second one. And so we had DeLoreans, and the venue, the one we had the fight scene in, I happened to be good friends with those guys, and they coincidentally just had a giant massive set of lips with a cigarette at the top of it, right on top of the bar, with like a LED, back wall, and they just happened to have that. And then later, after we filmed The King of '84, which was like all the bar stuff, that same place installed a light wall for their stage, which had like the lights going and all that. That's what we used for Moto for all the band sequences. They just happened to have it, and they let us film one day. So yeah, the rock opera stuff. I know I had the pleasure of working with them in 2019, which weirdly enough was all of our last theater show. It was Space Kumite, and even the name alone was just, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I got to do this. And when I got the email for auditions, they said it was 80s, sci-fi with like synthwave and stuff. And I remember I hit them up and I was like, have you seen what I've been up to for the past 3 years? Like, you guys, I have to show up and like show up to a color. And I'm like, we got to make this happen. So the Rock Opera Society guys were such a blast. The guy who played the villain in Valhalla, he's the director of the last 2 Thrill Killer music videos. Same dude. So yeah, him and I find ourselves working together on a ton of stuff. But anyways, those stories are crazy. There's a ton of fun stuff, but I guess that's probably my favorite one, is the story of how Valhalla went from, I see a Facebook post, I show up with my girlfriend at the time, and then 4 years later, I've had the pleasure of the privilege of working with a full symphony, doing songs with a laser guitar sword from it. So yeah, that was a heck of a trip.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's wild.
So like more on the like rock opera stuff, like do you know if any or like most of what you've been a part of is anywhere online?
Yeah. There was a live stream of Valhalla. That is on Ustream, I believe, still. The quality is okay. You can find cell phone footage of Maximus 2, but the direct recording I mentioned before from the board for Maximus 1, that is on my YouTube, so you can hear the finale from 2014, at least I think it was the first night. That is on there. For the rest of them, there is a video of there is some 1814 footage. There also is the album. We recorded a full album for it. That is on Spotify. Other rock opera stuff. You can find the album of one I did called Frankenstein, which is a progressive metal opera. But that was the album came out before our rock opera came out, and so that is on there. But the rest of it, there is a clip from when I did progressive metal Sweeney Todd. That there's a clip of it on SoundCloud. But that's about it. Usually when you do theater stuff, the rights are pretty protective.
Yeah.
I know that there's been a lot of talks about bringing Valhalla back. The Rock Opera Society has done a lot of remounts. And chronologically, from like the first show, they remounted that. They remounted the second. Chronologically, up next is Valhalla. And they know that if Valhalla happens again, I've told them that if it does, like, contact me. There is HD footage of it that's not been released. And I believe there is HD footage of Maximus 1 I've heard exists. But those are apparently, the bros have, there's also high definition stuff from Space Comité. But all of that is, they just have a vault, and I'm not sure what they do with it, but they're around. There's just bits and pieces everywhere.
That's cool, yeah. Like, I honestly, I need to look into that, because I love just stuff like that, especially like theater and stuff, which is why I understand, like, there's obviously something different than like being at an actual show and like than just watching it, like a video of it. But it's like, I wish, like, maybe after a few years, if a show gets recorded, like, they should just take the footage and like sell it, because I would gladly buy it even if I went to the show. Like, I would love that.
I went to bat to try to get. I've been trying to get my hands on the Maximus 1 footage. That has been the thing of mine. If I could get Maximus 1, yeah, I'm on the same page. Like, I think that Valhalla, it would be. I want to do it regardless if it gets brought back again. To do it at that scale, I think would be a challenge. We had a massive theater we were able to work with. I think there was a lot of hype from the bros still being kind of just beginning. That kind of helped out too. I mean, the bros are still putting on fantastic shows. If it happens again, I would strongly push these guys to record and like up the game of the live stream experience. Yeah. Because I know that I'll meet people, especially in the area, and like they'll hear about Valhalla. Like, I remember I was talking to this one girl recently, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you know the guys from Mark Opera?" I was like, "Yeah," and I brought up Valhalla. She's like, "Oh yeah, I got tickets to that, but I never saw it." And it was like, it just gut punch. It's like, you didn't see it. Like, there's a singer actually I met that did that. We actually became quite good friends afterwards. But he posted to the Valhalla event page, and he's like, "Hey guys, you want to hear a band with an opera singer? This is this." And I know he's excited to share his band, but like when I saw that, it was like, I've taken opera lessons. Why don't you? Did you not see this? And eventually revealed him, and we joked about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, I didn't see the second half." The second half of the show is that my character's voice has a spell cast on it, and I begin to use it. Yeah. So it's just kind of like we became buddies about that. And I was like, "Oh man, you didn't see that part?" So yeah, every once in a while it'll happen, and it'll be like, "Oh, if it happens again, I'll try to get you on board." But at this point, we're come next year. Actually, next month is the 9-year anniversary of Valhalla. It's hard to believe. It's almost been 10 years since Ares. We played with Dio Disciples, which was after Dio died, his band continued on with a couple singers. We opened for those guys. It just blows my mind that that's been almost 10 years now. It's creeping up on me. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, hopefully, if you guys get to do that again, like, hopefully they'll be on board with like you push it forward for, I guess, like a live stream or anything, really.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to get in people's hands. It's a show that needs to see the light of day. I've said that a million times to them, that Valhalla had 7 shows, and every one of them was an insane experience. But I think 7's not enough. So if it does happen again, you'll be one of the first guys to hear about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I look forward to it because, like, I mean, I'm not going to, like, dox myself right now, but, like, I'm not too far from, like, Baltimore or Maryland. So it's like, but like, even if I wanted to, like, I don't even think I'd be able to like get to a show like that. So here's to hoping for the best, I guess.
I'll definitely be giving my best. Until then, all the stuff that I have control over, yeah, that's all seen a light of day. We're also gonna be booking like crazy Mechatronics. We got a fall tour. We've been in the middle of booking. Throw Killers are gonna play a little bit in the area soon. And whenever I figure out what the Power Up Live experience is, that'll be a thing as soon as I get the hang of that too.
Awesome. All right. So I guess the last thing I want to ask you is like I know like you've been posting and like hinting about like upcoming projects like you've been a part of, and like we've even talked about it a little in this podcast. So is there like anything you've been working on that like you could maybe share today by any chance, or is it all just kind of like supposed to be like tight-lipped for now?
Well, it goes without saying that Power Up has a lot of new stuff on the way. My job over the next week is to finish a couple of demos that I've been working on. Mechatronics, we are very close to finishing our EP. I think we're down to the last song. We're filming a music video right now, and it's based on a very famous 80s action sci-fi movie. My weapon for my character just came in on my birthday on Monday, so that is stored now over there. It was probably the coolest parts of my birthday is I came home and things here. Thrill Killer. Oh yeah. Okay. There is something next year that might be happening. It's been in the works. There's someone that I've had the pleasure of working with on some of my Power Up stuff, and we had so much fun working together that we're in the middle of discussing a way to make that a more permanent official thing. Mm-hmm. So that is also being done. And really, a lot of this is going to start getting knocked out a lot faster once there's a job that I'm finishing. It's an audiobook job I'm doing. I'm wrapping that up next week, at least all the main recording for that. But yeah, we got a lot going on. I've got a multitude of Power Up demos I got to knock out. Once I knock them out, I'm sending them to Aztec, and fingers crossed. I want to get the Power Up album done. I think that the 3 songs is not enough for the Power Up catalog, and the new stuff I'm writing I'm pretty excited about. So yeah, there's a lot coming.
All right, well, I definitely look forward to all of it, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's about everything I had to ask. Is there anything else you'd want to share, or?
No, I had an excellent interview. These questions were phenomenal, and I really appreciate you having me on here.
Oh yeah, I mean, thank you for getting on here, man. Like, this is gonna be a blast. Do you want to like, I guess, tell the audience about like where to find you online, like Twitter and Instagram and stuff?
Yeah, so you can find Power Up at Power Up Music, which is my Twitter and my Instagram handle. Mechatronics, we have a couple different ones. So for Mechatronics on Twitter, I mix them up sometimes. Okay, Mechatronics Music Twitter, and then Thrill Killer X, and then on Instagram it's Thrill Killer Music, and then the Instagram for Mechatronics is Mechatronics Official. We also are on Facebook. I believe it's Mechatronics Music. I believe is on Facebook. Power Up Music is on Facebook. Now there's also Power Up Gaming, which is I don't do that too much anymore, but I used to do a lot of streaming. I might bring it back soon. And I believe it's all the major ones. Yeah, Thrill Killer Music, Mechatronics Music, Power Up Music, and Penetrator. We're building some stuff right now. Once we get some songs on Spotify, we can go proper with the socials. But if you're having trouble, there's a lot of stuff I just spewed out there. But if you contact any of those, I run all of them. So if anyone needs any other ones and you can't memorize all of them, happy to send them your way.
Alrighty, well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Power Rob. Thanks for being on the show, man.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yep. All right, well, I guess that's it. Thanks
Thank
again,
you.
man. Yeah, no problem. Have a good day.
Yeah, take care, man.
You too. Bye.
Bye.